I encourage you to listen to Nothing Personal, the David Samson podcast, where he runs through business issues in sports in a way that I don't hear them discussed anywhere else. He's got a facility and an expertise around this subject matter that isn't generally covered well in sports journalism. So there's a number of lawsuits here that I want to ask you about, ranging from Tom Brady to the Miami Heat to Yasiel Puig. But let's start with the idea in baseball that Aaron Judge might be colluded against, that the Players Association is now basically, it feels like, Dave, I'm not missing this, right? I'm not misunderstanding this. They're already throwing out there the money's not high enough for Judge. There's collusion going on. They're not saying it like that, but that's what they're saying, correct?
Oh, they're saying it exactly like that. They're here's what's happening. And we talked about, I think, on this show, but certainly on Nothing Personal, Steve Cohen does not want to sign Aaron Judge away from the Yankees because of what Hal Steinbrenner's role was in Steve Cohen buying the Mets. And that is a very normal thing. When you buy a team, you've got to get the votes. And Steve Cohen was a very controversial figure. And having Hal Steinbrenner in his corner as they were trying to get to 23 votes to approve his transaction, that became important. And was there a discussion that, hey, let's operate as Yankees and Mets in the same market? We are going to try to catch you. We're going to raise our payroll. You know that, Hal. We're going to try to win World Series. Let's meet in the World Series if we can every year. But I'm not going to take your guys. You're not going to take my guys. Wink, wink. Is it possible that happened? Of course. Why would Steve Cohen take Aaron Judge away from the Yankees and incur the wrath of Steinbrenner? You're always counting votes when you're an owner. You're always making sure that you don't have more than 7 enemies. So baseball always gets involved in this. And they say to the owners, don't talk like that because we're going to get charged with collusion and we're going to have to pay money to settle a grievance. But on the other side of their mouth, they're saying, don't overpay for players. So all of this crazy stuff that's being reported, Dan, it's all much ado about nothing. There is no collusion that goes on. There is conversation that goes on. And the Players Association pretends it's collusion, but it's not.
But wouldn't that be collusion, though, if two owners basically say, we're not going to compete fairly? And also, what is the statute of limitations on that? When, like, in 12 years' time, will Steve Cohen be able to sign a Yankee? Or is it 5 years? How long is this sort of truce agreement?
Yeah, so it's not an actual written agreement where they say, as part of the purchase agreement, where it's signed by both parties and witnessed that we're not going to sign each other's players.
Knock it off. That they would never leave a paper trail. There's not going to be a paper trail on collusion, but you're kind of describing something that has the circumstantial evidence around it that feels like collusion. If Aaron Judge doesn't get an enormous contract, and it's something that we see reported again and again, that the Mets and the Yankees are in business together like that. What is that?
These teams are all in business together. That's what baseball is. That's what all leagues are. All owners are in business together. But let's talk about statute of limitations on collusion or on what you call an enormous contract. Aaron Judge is going to get an enormous contract from a team, and it will likely be the Yankees. It was always going to be the Yankees. He is going to get more than the $213 million that he was offered last year's spring training. And this is an example of Scott Boras and other agents and Tony Clark, who heads the union, taking care of the top of their market. The irony is they don't give one rat's ass about all the minor league players who they now represent, all the mid-level free agents, all the young guys. They take care of the top, and that's what they protect only. And we take advantage of that fact, and we get better CBAs because most of the cash that teams spend is on the bottom. It's on operations. It's on filler players. So when we get better deals on those types of players, that makes owners happy. So the players' union is just terrible. They really are.
Are they? They're protecting the players, because a lot of people would say the owners' union, that's not called an owners' union, but you just described Cohen and Steinbrenner making a union, that's pretty terrible too.
The owners, I don't understand. What is an owners'
They're united.
Union?
That Cohen and Steinbrenner are united. They're united in New York on not competing to raise the salary of Aaron Judge.
No, that's not what they're united on. So you misspoke already. It's not saying don't sign him. It's saying you're still going to pay him a lot of money, but we're not going to pay $1 more and take him.
But David, we're talking.
That doesn't mean the Giants won't.
I know, but David, we're talking about the owner's collective interest. Whether or not you want to specifically refer to it as a union, their collective interest is not always, in the eyes of fans, in the best interest of the game, or obviously, due to their agreement with the players, in the best interest of the players. And so Dan is assessing a value judgment on the collective interest of the owners, which, in my view, and in the view of a lot of people, is not always the best for the game.
Because it's best for the game if Aaron Judge goes to the Mets for $352 million instead of $349.
It's best if everyone competes. It's best if everyone competes. Yes.
Everyone does compete, but not everyone can compete on the same players.
Except for when the New York Mets owner has got to get a vote and he's got to get 23 votes. So we're not going to compete in this instance.
Oh my God, that never happens anywhere else but baseball. You're totally right. My bad. People in the same industry never talk and get together about what's in the best interest of the industry and how to make sure an industry stays healthy. For sure. There's no conferences that people go to. Well, they're not allowed to anymore in certain companies, but there's no conferences that people go to in industries for best practices and figuring out the best ways to make more money. That never happens.
This seems like sarcasm. I'm back.
All of these industries do it. And what you're trying to protect against, by the way, do you think the airline industries don't talk to each other? Do you think like the people who run United and the people who run American, they're doing it in a silo? Well, we don't know what
David, what are you doing? You've been complaining about contracts in that sport since you thought that Ichiro's $100 million deal was going to be the ruination of that sport. Clearly, these owners have plenty of money to share with the players. The idea that the Mets and the Yankees might have a wink-wink agreement on keeping down Aaron Judge's salary.
That's not what the wink-wink is, Dan. The wink-wink is, hey, we're not going to take Judge from you. That doesn't mean that his salary is going to be held down. That doesn't mean the Yankees can all of a sudden offer Aaron Judge $220 million and say, thanks for the 62 home runs. We'll give you a $7 million VIG because Steve Cohen's not going to bid for Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge's money is not being held down by that.
But if in theory the vote to get Steve Cohen into Major League Baseball was orchestrated by Bruce Sherman instead of Hal Steinbrenner, then maybe Steve Cohen would go and compete with Hal Steinbrenner in a real way for this signing, and thus his dollar amount would go up because there would be a genuine competitor to the New York Yankees to sign Aaron Judge at a higher number.
It's just amazing that you're willing to give this much attention to the Aaron Judge, who is a unicorn of a player, right? The union is not made up of Aaron Judges. So you're trying so hard to protect the right of Aaron Judge to make the most money he can. It's so beautiful the way you all are, because that's how we take advantage of it, because you're totally ignoring the majority of the people. I don't even know. How can you explain your desire to make sure Aaron Judge gets the extra million and not give a flying crap about the other 400 players?
It's not that, David. It's that precedent-setting salary numbers. I'm going to side with labor and not management. Management's making plenty of money, even though management has done a pretty great job of fucking up that sport at every turn.
I can also walk and chew gum at the same time. I really don't care about Aaron Judge's salary. He's going to make a shed load of money one way or another. I care in the overall about these teams' desire to compete. And so if on the lower end they're not spending as much either, I actually do think that merits more attention. Why can't I argue on behalf of both of those things?
You absolutely can, and I appreciate that you can walk and chew gum. I've never understood that explanation.
I'm on it.
Meaning can multitask.
Gerald Ford,
like
right?
who can't walk and chew gum? Why was that the choice made by people to describe those who can only do one thing at a time?
You know, I'm going off the top of my head here, but I think it was because people thought Gerald Ford was an idiot, and someone said he can't walk and chew gum at the same time. That was what they were saying at the time.
What an amazing recall of
I might be wrong.
1976 by
I might
you.
be wrong, but I'm fairly sure.
All right.
That's
Chris
it.
Cody has thundered in from Canada, from another country, to be Thursday. Chris, we'll ask him in a second what the origins of that are, but we've gotten stuck in the mud here on this one story, so let's move on to some others. I don't think the Odell Beckham case has been studied or talked about well enough. Beckham is accusing Nike of keeping him away from Adidas and then basically keeping away from millions of dollars in sneakers. And the sneaker salesmen in sports make a lot of money. So you tell me, please, what's happening with this lawsuit, David, because I was reading some of the details and I'm like, oh my God, if I were Beckham, I'd be pissed at what he's accusing Nike of doing here.
So that is your reaction. It's funny where you stand, that you read a lawsuit and say, oh my God, Odell Beckham should be pissed. And I read the same lawsuit and I say Odell Beckham should be genuflecting in the general direction of Nike for just having given him the opportunity. It's all based on something called the right of first refusal, which if you're signing a contract and you're an employee of a company, or you are giving rights away or a license of a show or anything like that, don't ever give someone a right of first refusal, because that is an extremely powerful arrow in your quiver, and it has a quashing impact on the value of your asset. Because what it means is that you can go out and get an offer from another company to buy your show or to buy your product, but your original owner can say, all right, that's very nice of you. We've matched it, and now you have to stay with us. And what happens is when you go out and try to sell what you're selling, the other buyers will say, I'm not even making an offer at what your value is because it's just going to be matched. And so you're just using me to get more money from your original partner, and we're not going to get you anyway. So rights of first refusal are very dangerous. But what companies do is they want that right of first refusal because they want the power over whether they're going to keep endorsing the player. And players say, you're going to give me tens of millions of dollars, I'll give you that right of first refusal. So Nike had one. Odell Beckham goes to Adidas and cuts a deal with that German-owned company and goes back to Nike. And Nike says, all right, we are matching. Now Beckham is saying, you didn't really have my best interests in mind because you didn't properly promote me. Therefore, we were not able to sell the number of sneakers that we thought we'd sell. Therefore, I didn't make the money that I thought I could make as part of my contract because you don't love me the way Adidas did. Dan, have you ever worked for a place where they did not promote you in the way they thought you should be promoted? Has that ever happened?
Yes, and I left.
And did you have any possibility of proving that and making more money as a result of that?
As a result of that, yes.
No, you made more. I'm not talking about making more money by having left. I'm saying if you had sued someone, let's say ESPN, saying, man, you didn't do what I thought you would do. You didn't promote our show or cross platforms or whatever. You didn't start our store fast enough. Would you have prevailed in that, do you think?
No, we would have lost the lawsuit because you can't really go into court and spend money on a bunch of lawyers on promises that are broken, that are not in writing.
That is for sure. Odell Beckham has zero chance, which is why Odell Beckham, in the release about the lawsuit, said one of the great lines in all lawsuits, because he's the nicest man in the world. He said, I'm doing this on behalf of all other athletes.
Nice.
He doesn't care about other athletes. He's doing it on behalf of his own bank account. And here's how nervous Nike is about the lawsuit. Zero. Because that's the amount of money Beckham will get.
Do you think he was wronged or no? Not that he could prove he's wrong in court, that he was wronged in court. Do you think he was wronged? Yes or no?
No, and here's why. The consumers vote with their pocketbooks, right? Do you think that Nike didn't promote and sell Odell Beckham's shoes? Everybody wanted them, and they said, nah, we'd rather have you buy something else. If people wanted them, it's not like he's Yeezy or Ye or what's the Kanye West. He's just a guy. If people were buying his stuff, then Nike would sell it.
The whitest.
In Gerald Ford's 1974 biography, Lyndon Johnson, the president, it has a cutting but quotable comment that Ford had played too much football without a helmet and that he was unable to walk and chew gum at the same time.
LBJ.
It's 50 years before Herschel Walker. They're not lobbing that at Gerald Ford.
LBJ gave us a CTE joke in 1972. Well done.
Ahead of his time.
Such a pioneer.
The original concussion guy is Gerald Ford. Is that the story we're going to go with?
That's what we're going with.
Not Will Smith. Okay.
FTX has been a total disaster, a shame-soaked mess, and I'm curious, from Tom Brady to the Miami Heat's 19 years of naming rights, what are the things that are most interesting to you around the corrupt dissolving of FTX?
Are you going to say that Ian Bankman-Fried is poor? Are you going to do like an Alec Jones thing to me this week and say his life's over?
Sam. It's Samuel. I think it's Samuel Bankman.
Yeah, it's $2.
Fried. Greed.
Oh, it's fried, not freed?
No, fried is better. Bankman Fried sounds better. Bankman Greed sounds better. But it is Sam.
We're sure it's Sam?
We think.
We know. No.
It's Sam.
Here's the thing with that. It's always better when you're filing a lawsuit to put famous names in it because then it gets more attention. And so the reason that Tom Brady and Shaquille O'Neal and the Warriors and Steph Curry are involved in the lawsuit, which is being filed it's a class action lawsuit, which is all the people who lost their money in cryptocurrency. It's imagine all the people who lost their money in Miami coin. They got together and said, we're going to sue Francis Suarez for telling us how great this investment was. And now we turned $1 into a penny. No, because when you invest in cryptocurrency or any stock, or anything, all the fine print of everywhere you make your investment says the same thing. You are not guaranteed to make money. Past performance is not indicative of future results. There are paragraphs, pages of legal things that you all initial. How many times have you been on the internet and done have you ever done a DocuSign or signed anything like a liability waiver where you just sign it and you have no idea what you're signing? Do you ever do that?
All the time.
Every day we all do it.
Yep. Terms and
written
conditions.
by lawyers who make sure that if you sue that company, you don't win anything. All the people who lost money in FTX, they're just online as creditors in a regular bankruptcy. And just like the Miami Heat are online, they're not a secured creditor. They're online to get paid along with everybody else to get their money back. They're not going to get a penny from it. And what's worse is there's a duty to mitigate, which means the Miami Heat have to go out and sell their naming rights again. They can't just do nothing and claim, hey, we're owed this $16 million a year. Give it to us. They have to try to resell it for $10 million a year and then claim the $6 million difference. So there's total panic right now with the county of Miami-Dade and the Miami Heat because it's a revenue stream that's now gone. They're not going to get paid on that naming rights deal. But they can't be surprised, can they?
They can't, and they sort of structured the deal as such. From what I've read, it seems like it was mostly year one lump sum payment and then some payment over the course of time. It was sort of like 50% of the contract was in year one, and then over the course of time, there was more payment that was eventually owed from FTX. They sort of recognized that this was going to be a volatile industry. But do you think this scares other arenas and teams, not necessarily from the crypto field, but from things that seem fad-ish, that they're like that maybe there's a chance that they're buying into an industry that's not going to be around for a while?
When anything that's too good to be true, it generally is. But the prospect of dollars in front of you and being able to announce huge deals will always win the day. You think that Mickey Arison wasn't aware that a cryptocurrency company is very likely not to be around, or that Bankman Greed is probably not a guy you want to do business with? Of course he's aware of it, but when you have a chance to have a deal like that, you do it, you cross your fingers, and you hope it works out. And you also know that it likely won't, and you're okay with that. And I don't think that happened, Chris. I think they got $20 million up front. They put in a breakage fee, which is very common, that if you break the deal, then we're owed another sum of money. But that doesn't have teeth. the $16 million they're reportedly owed in a case of a bankruptcy, they're not going to get that.
Right.
FTX. So I think they're still owed quite a bit of money.
Right. Yeah, I guess that was my question, David. You could put all those clauses into the contract, but if the company doesn't exist anymore, well, it's pennies on the dollars what you're going to get out of bankruptcy court, right?
If that, right?
If that. They're lucky if they get pennies on the dollar, because the bankruptcy, the way that works, if there's an amount of money that a bankruptcy judge has to give to creditors, they're going to give it to individual people who got totally screwed out of their life's savings way before they're going to give money to the Miami Heat in the county of Dade.
But David, you have done naming rights deals. You know how hard it is to get money from people to put a name on a stadium. You struggled with it. The Marlins struggled with it the entire time you were here. Can you take us into the bowels of the conference rooms of the Miami Heat, where they take all this money from this fly-by-night type of outfit that's just spilling money all over the place and buying celebrities, and after signing a 19-year deal, it's gone very quickly. Can you tell me the chaos that causes, the budget chaos, the scrambling that happens now as you have no leverage? You're sitting, you've got to name a stadium, and all you've got in your past is shame and this embarrassment.
So the question is, when you are budgeting your operation and you've got a stream of revenue, you take a certain percentage of that revenue, not as guaranteed, but you sort of split it into expected. We expect to get this revenue. If all things go well, we'll get this revenue. In a downside scenario, we'll get that. And in a blow up worst case scenario, we'll get that. So there's something called in budgeting an upside case, a base case, and a downside case. If you're the Miami Heat or any of these companies doing deals, you don't just have your crypto deals in that. You've got other sponsorship deals as well. You've got part of your season ticket base and the payments that come to you from season ticket holders. All of your revenue, you take a percentage of that and you say, in a downside case, we will not be able to collect this revenue. So it's not unexpected. They're not running around with their pants on fire. They are just operating in a downside case scenario. It's the same thing that Carnival does. When they're budgeting how their recovery will be from COVID, they've got a downside base and upside case with the speed in which the company will recover and the speed in which the stock will recover. So they're very prepared for it. And so I'm not worried about that. The Heat are not going to have to trade any players because of FTX. Miami-Dade's not going to go into deficit because this naming rights deal went away. And in terms of shame and embarrassment, I don't know. Is it more embarrassing to do a deal with Bang Brothers and make $20 million a year and get paid every year for 10 years, or to do a deal with, Pepsi for $8 million and get paid every year? I'd rather get the extra money, right? So there's no shame, no embarrassment.
No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't.
No. He's right. Listen,
he said he wouldn't do a deal. He said
No.
he wouldn't do a deal with Qatar Airways for Marlins Park,
that's
right?
a fair point. Yeah.
The BBC.
I would absolutely listen. I've told you that my views now that I'm not president are I'm able to have a different point of view about who I would do business with and who I wouldn't. But when you're in the trenches trying to balance a budget and trying to raise as much money as you can to cut losses or to increase payroll, you're willing to take money from anyone. The only reason I didn't take money from Scott Rothstein is I thought that I'd get in trouble because I knew he was such a criminal. But I'm not going to get in trouble for taking money from Qatar, from, strip clubs. It's not against the law. It's just not exactly a great look for some people, but that I didn't care about.
David, did you ever do a cross your finger and pray deal? Because I did a few in my day. One was with Nature Bee. The Dove Healer comes to mind. I'm wondering, did you ever do?
Healer.
Yeah.
You've done.
The money was so good, I had to take it, and I prayed every month we get paid.
You've done a few of those with others, and more others have done a few of those with you.
You are the ultimate finger crosser, right?
Yes.
When, especially selling your own show, let's say what nothing personal, when you have sponsors and you're doing reads of a company and you're saying, wow, did the money come in this week? So that is very, very common, but you're not talking about the size of a deal like FTX. I don't feel sorry for one person who lost their money in crypto. I really don't. If you're going to listen to Tom Brady, how many of you, when you make an investment of real money, does it matter that it's someone famous telling you to do it? If someone famous tells you to drink Coke instead of Pepsi, maybe you'll do that, even though that is very questionable that people change their mind about what brand of soda. It's why you market cigarettes and soda to young people, because once they choose their brand, that's their brand. You're very unlikely to change them through sponsorship. But in a big thing like a house, when you buy your house, if Shaquille O'Neal said, buy this house, it's great, are you not going to do an inspection?
But you say that, David, but crypto absolutely bought credibility with those celebrities and Super Bowl commercials. Like they absolutely
Brady and Steph,
they bought crypto. If you had doubt about crypto, you kept saying to yourself, how are they buying all these people? This must be real.
It's the opposite. How they're not real, and they're trying to pretend it's like the emperor with no clothes. They put all these celebrities. Haven't you ever watched Super Bowl commercials of a company and said to yourself, my God, they just blew their entire wad on that 60 seconds?
Yeah, but David, you are basically undercutting all of advertising that works with celebrity spokespeople. Like, it's why they do it. It's one of the reasons advertising works, and crypto got everyone's attention by buying Larry David and buying Matt Damon and buying Tom Brady.
I'm saying there's a big difference between getting a celebrity to tell you to take your life savings and put it here versus a celebrity telling you to wear Maybelline. It's a very big difference.
David, I don't have really a question here. It's really just I'm going to give a take and then you can react. Can everybody shut up with the whole Jeff Saturday stuff? He's a multi-time Pro Bowler. He knows the game just as well as anybody. Where was this outrage when you guys hired Dan Jennings?
It was there. I remember.
It was
a little
there.
quieter.
It was quieter, but
It was
nobody-
outraged when they hired Jack McKeon. I mean, there was.
Dan Jennings admittedly was not a famous ESPN personality, but there was some outrage there.
When you are an owner of a team, you get to do whatever you want. How many owners of radio stations put people on the air who have no experience? It's Jeff's Saturday. It doesn't really matter, right? Inside the NFL, like what Bill Cowher did, I thought was misguided in terms of his frustration and anger about assistant coaches going through training camp and working all day and night. And then all of a sudden, here comes this guy in from the media. There are people who come into sports from all sorts of different places, from agencies, from law firms, from media companies. It's totally reasonable because there's an owner of the team who doesn't give a flying crap about what any of us are saying about the team if they're smart and good at their job. So
I
had
wouldn't
no
give a
problem
flying
with that
crap.
hiring.
I'd keep it. I think it'd have value over time.
Does it have wings?
Crap that flies?
If
Yeah.
I had a flying crap that I could give to somebody,
Crazy.
I think it'd be an amazing gift to receive if you were given
Collector's
a flying
item.
crap.
Is this a technology advancement or just magic? Because this is a different type of flying poop. Is this just like advancements have been
Like a
made
drone?
and poop can
Like
now
a
fly?
feces
Or is
drone?
this a magic piece of poop and there's no technology
A
here?
magic piece
Flying
of poop.
crap,
yeah.
not a thing.
I've heard it. I just don't understand it. I don't know why anybody would. I understand not giving a crap. I don't understand why it then becomes a flying crap.
I like to think of it as a piece of crap with like bird wings.
Right,
Yeah.
magical.
And it flaps.
More magical
Come out
than
after.
technology.
Right.
Kind of
yeah.
like Namor in
Fly away.
Wakanda Forever. You know, got those stuff on his
I
ankles.
meant it differently. When I say flying crap, I'm trying to exaggerate the size of the crap.
Oh,
Size, huh?
the size. Wow.
It's
Okay.
all size.
So
for
you
me.
have it as a big piece of flying crap.
Yeah.
I had
No,
it.
but
I had
that
it
to me
tiny.
is redundant.
I would think that it would need to be small in order to fly. Now
Yeah.
you're making it a more Herculean effort by making it like a buzzard.
Like it's
Like
a
an
se-
airplane.
Like
Yeah.
a C-130.
747s
Like-
flies better than Cessnas.
It's a flying crap.
I've got it the way
otherwise
Billy
known
Gill-
as Spirit Airlines.
The way Billy Gill flies. The way Billy Gill flies,
Yeah.
that's the way I've got it.
Yeah.
With like flapping wings really fast.
Like a big piece of crap with like little wings. Yeah. No.
Tiny
Think
wings.
people are rooting against the Colts because they want Saturday to get fired?
I don't
Well,
think that they're-
coaches are rooting against Jeff Saturday because he's coming after their profession, showing how easy it
I
is.
think, well, it's one game.
I know, but it was a big game.
And the Raiders.
I mean, they're in the mix.
I don't think Jeff Saturday taught all of us that anyone can do this.
They have the Eagles this week. We'll
and
see.
And it's an easy job.
Oh, man. How about if they beat the Eagles?
I know.
Wow.
Well, I think
Now.
we're all rooting for that now, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
We're rooting to enrage Rex Ryan and Bill Cowher, make them less and less relevant.
Because I'll be real, Dan. We've talked about this in the NBA. Guys that like, oh, he showed up at the gym at 6 a.m. and he left last night at 3 a.m. Like that, the NFL guys, that's the norm, right? NBA, you get some guys who are like that, but we're always like, you're not doing your job then. If it takes you that long, if it takes you that long to prepare, you're not doing your job very well. You're not doing it efficiently. There's countless studies that show after a certain amount of time, the human brain just stops working.
Yeah, there are studies on nurses and others. I remember when I learned that. It was Jim Leland walking past backup catcher Greg Zahn, and Greg Zahn worked so hard, and then he flied out to the warning track. And he's like, if you worked less, that ball would have gone out.
What about the coach with the greatest example of how bad he looked at the end of the season versus the beginning of the season, to me, was always Jeff Van Gundy, who would have these purple, like, circles, like discolored circles under his eyes at the end of a season.
I didn't say it at the time, but it's the ultimate look at me, Louie. It's the idea that, I work so hard and I'd never see my family. That's all bullshit. That's not a measure of how good a coach you are, even like how disciplined you are. It's just a measure of, I'm going to just do things. We had a coach that would come in at like 7 in the morning or 6:30 in the morning. And so one of the other assistant coaches, just as a lark, like decided to show up like at 6:25 and like, hey, like nice of you to join us. The next day, the other coach shows up at 6. And so then they started doing this thing where like just
it's a dangerous game.
Yeah, but just to raise the ante on like nothing has changed here. You're just for your own pride saying, I got here at 5 in the morning. Look at what
Jim
a great
Leland
coach
had a bed in the clubhouse.
Oh God. Live there.
Like an actual bed. The clubhouse manager made an actual bed because he would spend nights so he could just smoke heaters and work on the next day's lineup.
It's a mattress and an ashtray, right? That's it.
So I can focus on the Pirates.
It's to write 9 names down.
Yeah, like this. Jeez.
I love
Is
Chris
it weird
Cody.
that people in the dugout used to smoke?
It's so
Do people
good.
remember that?
To drink beer in the
We
locker room.
used to fly on flights. We used to fly on flights with ashtrays in the armrest.
Yeah. And
I always like the smoking section, like is row 17 through 21, and the people in row 16 are like flailing their arms as though the smoke is not in their seat.
Oh man, I guess Whitty's the youngest person. Whitty, you don't remember a time where you would like book a hotel room or book a flight and they'd ask you smoking or non-smoking.
They still do that.
No, I must have very, very early. I feel like maybe until I was 8 or 9, you'd go to a restaurant, you go to the Chili's on a Friday night, and they'd still ask you if you wanted to be in the smoking or non-smoking section. But it was gone very early in childhood.
I was watching Planes, Trains, and Automobiles and just seeing John Candy, like waking up from his bed and just sitting up and smoking a cigarette. I'm just like, that's gross.
There's still people who smoke in hotel rooms, but now they have a cleaning fee. Like if it smells, they'll have to do something and charge you an extra couple $100.
I'm pretty sure the last time you could smoke on an airplane was like 2000. I think they actually
No.
outlawed it in 2000.
No.
Yeah.
It is
Earlier than that, I
No,
feel
it
like.
wasn't. It wasn't
Really?
earlier than that. It was like airlines started to phase it out on their own, saying, "Hey, we have smoke-free flights." But Tony's right. I think 2000 when it was like, okay, law, you can't smoke on a plane anymore.
I rarely get sadder than I do anywhere in the world than walking past the leprosy lounge at an airport that's just filled with a smokiness and these people trapped inside with their addiction.
It's the
You
lung
should go to
cancer
Europe
lounge.
sometimes, Dan.
Yep.
No, but that
He just
lounge,
described Europe. You're right.
No, but the Atlanta airport where it's just a glass case of cigarettes, a cigarette like kind of residue on the walls, a film on the glass
It's a
windows.
Budweiser bar too, by the way.
Right,
Like,
right, exactly.
so gross.
At the Atlanta one, there's like a NASCAR one, a
Oh,
NASCAR
so
theme one,
gross.
where I sort of walk up there for 2 seconds and it's just a cloud of smoke. You walk into, it's like this has to be the saddest place in America.
But by the
Wait,
way,
are you judging those people?
absolutely.
I mean, indoor, because you have such a problem that you can't go 10 hours without like getting to your destination. Like, presumably you will get somewhere at some point where you can smoke a cigarette, right?
Well, you could smoke a cigarette there by law. It's a room for smokers.
I'm not
No,
judging
it's
the people
just
though.
You're there 3 hours
I know,
before
it's
your
just like
flights. I'm
that
defending
is
it.
the,
Oh,
that is the
God.
connective tissue between all of the people in that room. Is we all have a problem that we can't control, so we're all going to make each other smell like shit and look sad in this room.
I'm not
Wait, as
judging.
opposed to the people at the bar who are having 7 drinks before they fly, they don't have a problem?
No, but the idea is,
I am not judging these people. I am saying, why can't we do better for these lepers? Why can't the leper colony be nicer and not have glass that's tight with smoke?
It's almost
they
as
don't look at
sad.
themselves as lepers.
It's almost as
They're
sad as
just
the one in
having a- They're
Vegas.
just having a heater.
The one that's sad in Vegas is it's like a cube. It's like a cube in the middle of the airport.
Smoky
and there's
cube.
and there's 4 slot machines in there.
Oh.
So people that just go in there, they play the slots and they smoke their cigarettes. And it's just you walk past it and it really is like an observation area. It's like, ooh, look at these creatures inside of this room. They can't control their multiple vices.
They arrange those slots to pay off more, actually, to
Do they?
encourage the smoking.
Really?
really?
It's interesting.
Might start
Sounds
smoking.
good. It
Wait, but
sounds
Dan, you're looking for enhanced facilities for smokers? Is that what you're doing? Like a luxury hotel? What are you looking for?
Not a smoke-filled cube in a corner of the airport that allows Amin and Whittingham to walk by and look at you smoking heaters and saying you're weaker with your dependencies than they are. Just something that
some
makes
lights in
something
there.
a little more comfortable.
While you're eating a quarter pounder.
Ah, it's the best. It's heaven.
Again, David, I don't need whataboutism on you're also unhealthy with your drink and your burgers. That's fine. You're correct. But I don't eat those in shame in a smoky cube. I eat those in shame in my bathtub, hiding from my wife.
A burger room would be great, though.
Oh, that would be awesome.
That's what we should have. I want a little cube where all the people go to binge eat or binge drink and have them stared at. And I want to pump in like smelly grease so that people walking by look and say, my God, does that smell like crap?
Put it on the poll,
Big
Chris Cody,
flying crap.
at LeBatard Show. Would you pay to watch video of your friend's secret shame? What
Not
is
your
the movie
friends,
you're
strangers?
What is the movie you're reviewing for us this week?
Oh, I wanted to get serious with you. I hope you have a few minutes. I watched the Jonah Hill movie yesterday. I made a mistake yesterday, not my finest moment. I did a double feature, and I watched Stutz, the new Jonah Hill directed documentary, which is filming a therapy session of his, and I watched the Selena Gomez documentary on Apple, which I reviewed on today's Nothing Personal. So I did it, and I did it in the dark, and it was just a very, very depressing day. Jonah Hill is an interesting person because he is trying to explain to you that rich and famous and money and acting and women or men or whatever your choice is, that does not take away what your issues are that you had growing up. And Jonah Hill had weight issues growing up, self-esteem issues, and he decided it was time to go to therapy. And his therapist is a 74-year-old man who suffers from Parkinson's, who has basically saved Jonah Hill's life. And this is an 1.5-hour movie about the process of saving Jonah's life that can be applied to helping you, because Jonah's issues, while he's rich and famous, are the same as all of our issues in terms of depression, anxiety, concern, self-image issues. And it is a very deep, important movie that is very hard to watch all at once. And it's not ADHD that caused this. It was just the depth of the pain that I was feeling. I was not able to watch it straight through. It required 3 breaks during the 1.5 hours. So I did it like in half-hour increments because it's that interesting and difficult a movie.
Too personal, too vulnerable? It made you uncomfortable?
Yes. Because, of course, I made it about me. So that's what vulnerability is. It's not that I couldn't watch someone else be vulnerable about themselves. You watch these movies like the Selena movie and the Jonah Hill movie, and you apply it to your own life, your own situation, your own pain, your own tragedies, and your own traumas. And it just becomes this overwhelming thing. But it's very, very well done and worth watching because I've not seen a movie like it.
You don't think it's weird that he would take his pain and suffering and create content out of it? Like that's the part where I'm always I get real skeptical and cynical. Like, come on, man. Like, oh yeah, no, and because here's the thing: whatever that process was, he brought cameras in there before that process took place. So
right. So let me explain. It's not that. So it's not filming a one therapeutic session. It's filming a session between him and his therapist as his therapist describes things and tools that are used by him to get Jonah healthier that can be applied to all of us to get us healthier.
So, but the conversation happened after he kind of came out on the other side of whatever he was going through, or during him?
Great question. Both. He's not on the other side. So, none of us are on the other side.
You know what I mean? I'm like, I guess my thing is, he's going to his therapist, and they're working through this, and at some point, through all this pain and issues from childhood and all that stuff, a light bulb goes off in his head. You know what we should do? We should film this.
Well, it could help others. You don't have to be cynical.
Why he's doing it.
You don't have to be cynical about this. Jonah Hill doesn't need to make more content.
But don't we all do that? I do that with nothing personal. I take things that are going on in my life and I make it part of the show. That doesn't mean that I'm not going through it. It doesn't mean that it's not as terrible a pain or that I'm feeling. Dan, you do it every day when you talk about things that are personal to you, whether it's on Cuba issues or freedom of the press or anything, politics.
Yeah, but the difference is these are examples that you're using of us going into those topics on a vehicle that goes to a lot of topics, our podcast, versus I made a 90 to 120 minute piece of content that was packaged and sold specifically about this. Like the idea that he sat down and said, ooh, I should make content out of this. It's just, to me, it's always gross.
I've had that feeling before while talking to people about personal stuff, saying to myself, this would be good for others to hear. This would be helpful for others to hear. I've had that feeling.
Kind of egotistical too, right?
That's what Jonah was saying.
There's some ego going on there too. The idea like, ooh, I've got something that can help people.
Why would he have ego?
Ego? What are you talking about? You don't have ego? Everybody with a microphone in front of them has ego.
Not me.
Oh, you're
get out of here. Jesus
Give me a
Christ.
break.
Dave, good talking to you. We will talk to you again next week. Hopefully next week we will not be joined by the egoless Amin El Hassan.